All right, Ambrose, we'd like to thank you very much for your thoughts. Stay with us. We will check in with you very quickly as we cross over to the era and harvest of strike, as we do have now. Thankfully, the resident doctors have not called off their strike. According to them, they have only suspended their strike. And of course, however, JUSUN are on strike. I think it's day 6 now. Of course, ASUP are threatening to go on strike as well. Maritime workers only yesterday have also given the federal government a 7-day ultimatum, a deadline of 7 days. If the federal government does not meet with their demands, they have threatened to shut down the waterways. I mean, it's not a very, very wonderful sight to be. Well, let's begin with even JUSUN. I mean, a legal practitioner is here with us, Austin. Austin, the courts have been grounded for 6 days now. Share with us your experiences, your feelings. What is going on for every lawyer right now in the country?
Personally, as a legal practitioner, I felt very sad. Coming from the lockdown, I do expect that things will be far better than it is right now. Throughout the lockdown, for months, the court was not sitting, cases were not going on, litigants were suffering. And at this point, even the court has not fully recovered from the lockdown. We have courts that are sitting twice in the week because of the courts that were burnt in Igbojere. Okay. Now judges have to share courts. We have situations where instead of getting adjourned date for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, you are getting for 4 months, for 3 months, because of the time frame. And if you look at what the NBA has, they issued a statement to say, well, they are in support of the strike, but the timing is definitely wrong. And the timing that the NBA was referring to is at this particular point in time where people, litigants, lawyers, judges have not recovered from the lockdown. So for us, the timing is definitely not right. I also support the cause, but if you look at the whole scenario, you will see that for how long are they going to continue to fight for judicial autonomy? If the government is not sincere to grant the judiciary financial autonomy, then they cannot be truly judicial independence. And that is what they are fighting for, which is a good cause. We must support the system, and we must advocate for people who believe in this struggle to ensure that this financial autonomy is given to the judiciary.
All right, let's check in with Ambrose. Samson, we'll check in with you very quickly because I would like you to share your thoughts, especially as regards to the maritime workers. If they do shut down, what is going to play out? I would like to come from that angle. Let's speak with Samson first of all. Samson, well, Austin here has raised something which I think we must talk about. He has talked about the timing of this particular strike. When will the timing be right? That's a question to ask. Then the second part of the question as well is the fact that despite the intervention of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tako Mohammed, and even others, it does appear that there's even no resolution has been reached just yet, Ambrose.
Yeah, this year, last year I think, Decree 10 that the president issued directing the full implementation of the autonomy of the judiciary at the federal level. And that was a directive from the president. Constitutionally, there are 3 independent arms of government, the executive, legislature, and of course the judiciary. The other 2, the executive and the legislature, have found their way to the they are very independent in terms of financial independence. They have it, The National Assembly makes its own budget, keeps its own funding, and runs its own affairs. The same thing with the executive, its retinue of parastatals and ministries, departments, and agencies. They run their own affairs. Now, the third leg of the whole democratic process, which is the judiciary, have been left hanging. Therefore, they are fighting for a just cause. They are not fighting for the things that are not ordinary. They are just saying, give us what belongs rightly to us, as guaranteed by the kind of democratic experiment that we are into. We have seen a lot of times where judges are lined up and given car keys, at the behest of a governor, or given house keys, and then the executive donating to the judiciary. That is like a master-servant relationship. I don't know if that's not what the Constitution says. Therefore, I think it is high time that we started looking at it deeply. The government, the executive has actually agreed. Let us remember that the government, when we say the government, we are talking about these three arms. We are talking about the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The government is not just the executive. Therefore, they should, I think that time that the decree was made, the executive order. Executive order was made last year. We are expected by now, which is almost 6 months down the line, that they would have, all the accountant generals of the country would have met and fine-tune strategies on how to ensure that the judiciary has financial independence. This can be worked out by the accountant generals of the 36 states, working with the accountant general of the country, the chief justices, and the attorney generals of the states. These are not difficult matters, and they are administrative matters that can be worked out because the federal government is already in support of it. So not implementing it is not palatable at all. We didn't need to wait for these judicial workers to go on strike. I don't know why strike, is always an option before we come to the table. We are supposed to nip strikes in the bud before they happen. And that also leads to sincerity of purpose. That also leads to synergy of working as a government. And if those things are absent, then we are going to be having disruptions in the system. And disruptions will only tend to inhibit our economic growth as a nation.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambrose. We'll come back and check in with you very quickly. Samson, thank you as well for standing by in the United Kingdom. What are your thoughts about this era of strike, this abundance of strike everywhere you go? Is that the only language the government, the Nigerian government, precisely understands? That's on one part. The resident doctors, let's say that they have no cause of the strike. It has only been suspended. What is the difference between these two words? My English has failed me, Samson. You may need to help me.
Well, I think it's sad to note that, sadly, our political class had chosen to hold Nigerians at the jugular, and if you look at it, just like my co-panel speaker had spoken now, there are three arms of government, and the political class are taking executive, they've taken the legislature away from the people, and the last one that the people hold on to, it is the judiciary. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his benevolence, had given this financial autonomy to judiciary, such that there could be control, self-control, as against what we presently have, that judges are still ladies of executive, they are the BS of the messes of executive arm of government. So, but you see that our political class fail to do the needful that could help Nigerians out of these issues, out of these problems. They continually, repeatedly ensure that at every opportunity they have, they show Nigerians that they do not matter. And the question I ask Nigerians is, when are Nigerian people, when is the Nigerian people, when are they going to
All right, Samson, I'm not sure we can have your connection again. I think the network as well has been out there. Well, stick with us. This is Firecrackers. Let's take another break. We'll be back in just a moment as we begin to wind down on our conversation as regards the strike playing out in many sectors of the country. This is Firecrackers. We're back in just a moment. Stay with us. Well, you're welcome back. This is Firecrackers. Thanks for staying with us. Samson, I think you need to go ahead again with your thoughts, but this time around, zeroing on the maritime workers' 7 days deadline to the federal government. If this goes ahead, what do you think may play out for our very, quote, fragile economy, which is only just recovering from the recession?
First and foremost, as of today, the Nigerian Port Authority is one of the biggest contributors to the Nigerian economy, because we are a very largely import-dependent economy, and so there are lots of tariffs that the government earns from. But again, our politicians, do you think, I'm asking, are they really concerned about what happens with our economy? You had the governor of Edo State saying recently that they go to Abuja and if there's no money, they simply just print money and share again. So the question is, if this strike goes on, are they going to be concerned? It's only Nigerians, the poor man on the street, that gets concerned. The people who work at the maritime sector are the ones who are going to suffer. So our politicians are supposed to have been having this discussion long before now. This issue has been 8 years old. It's an 8 years old issue. And it's going to benefit Nigeria in every ramification. We are talking about IOCs, international oil companies, who have failed to domesticate the laws that have been passed 8 years ago. So what is the issue exactly? Why is it that we find it so difficult to implement laws in our country? We favor foreigners over Nigerians. These are Nigerians trying that. They want to do their regular job at the ports, and government representatives who are supposed to ensure these issues are fully implemented and they are managed, they are supported, they are protected. Rather than for them to protect the Nigerians, they chose to protect the international organizations. It's so sad. When you look at that story, it's been long overdue. We are talking about unemployment in the country. Now, if you ensure that this law is implemented at the port authority, it's going to create a lot of more jobs, because they're going to have oil companies engaging a lot of more Nigerians into their organizations. And what does that do for us? It increases our productivity, it increases people's income. People who do not have jobs now get to have jobs. And there will be more Nigerian participation in that sector. But what do we have today? We have a leadership and a political class that have been, I wouldn't use the word docile, but they've sounded like they do not care. Whatever happens, whether Nigerians whether they are bothered or not, they do not really care. So if this strike should go on, it's going to further plunge Nigerian economy into the ditch. There is no two ways about it, because if you check the permutations of what is coming from the Nigerian Port Authority, it's quite huge. And if they shut it down, I tell you, even if for a day, I tell you that's going to hit Nigeria really, really hard.
Just a moment, Samson. Maybe in 60 seconds or less, you may just respond to these, because the maritime workers have fingered the Nigerian Port Authority, the NPA. They've also fingered the NNPC. They have said that the NNPC and the NPA have been very silent about these particular laws, the IOCs. Why is that so?
One thing is inconsistency in policies. Then we have not had substantial leadership control, because if you don't have leadership stability in such organizations, you always have that when one leader comes, the director comes in, he wants to start his own policies, he has his own friends and partners, and that's what that does every now and then, is that it fosters growth and productivity. So what I feel that we should be doing is that we should have a system and a progression such that we have substantial DGs of such organizations shouldn't be appointed for a short term. They should be appointed for a long time so that they can drive home policies effectively and concludingly. So for me, I also saw that NNPC had been quiet. They know the implication of what they're doing. Some of them have friends in these IOCs. Some of them have people who are beneficiaries of these IOCs who are friends with them. So, bottom line is that they try to protect their business as well. They keep quiet and they don't talk. But the ultimate is that the business should favor Nigerians and Nigerian mood. I've been to so many countries in my life, and I've never seen a country like Nigeria where citizens stand against fellow citizens, where citizens do not fight for their countrymen. It is only in Nigeria you see that Nigerians will be the ones standing against Nigerians. It's so sad. It's so sad. It's so sad. Honestly, I do not know how to put this word, but it's really, really sad. This issue shouldn't come to the level where you now begin to...
Stay with us. We will check in with you. Really very sad. It's a very pathetic situation. I'm just a bit concerned about the fact that, in fact, virtually every sector, the education sector, resident doctors, maritime workers, everyone, there's a shutdown everywhere you go, so to say, Austin. But now, in your opinion, what exactly can we begin to do differently to turn things around, maybe on a general scale?
Frankly speaking, I believe that the government needs to be proactive. You don't need to wait for things to degenerate before you begin to respond to them. Again, we have talked about leadership stability in some of these sectors. It is important that the tenure of all the DGs and the different stakeholders be properly defined. Where you have a situation where somebody just comes within 1 year, 2 years, is out, another person moved in, there cannot be continuity of projects and ideas. Now, for me, it is important that the government speedily begin to take Nigerians and all the various sectors seriously. If we begin to do that, we will see that there will not be need for strike. Issues will be attended to before agitation will start. But where you wait for agitation to start before you begin to listen to people, then every other sector will feel that, okay, it is only strike that the Nigerian government listen and understand, and they'll begin to embark on strike.